Ambassador Alexander Marschik, uh, warm welcome to the United Nations once again. You've had a very distinguished career as Director General of International Affairs for your foreign ministry and many other important posts. And now you represent Austria in the United Nations as a permanent representative. Unfortunately, we are not only remembering Kristallnacht, but a very, very tragic date for Austria, Europe, and the world. Again, terrorists have raised their ugly heads. And I expressed my solidarity with the Austrian people with a phone call to both Chancellor Kurz and President von Bellen. And I want you to know that we at Parkey Synagogue are praying for the families who lost their loved ones and the injured for healing. May they recover quickly. So can you give us the latest report? The only reaction I had so far, speaking to the leaders of Austria, that it was only one attacker, ISIS related, and also in speaking to the leaders of the Jewish community, while the attack was in the neighborhood of the synagogue, the main synagogue site in the Steppen Temple, no casualties, and Jewish institutions and synagogues have reopened today.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Rabbi Schneier. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm a great admirer of you and of your work, and also of the Appeal of Conscience Foundation. It's a great privilege and honor to be here. Thank you also for the kind words addressed to us and to all the Viennese who suffered this attack just 2 days ago. It's true, and I think you've summed up very well where we are at the moment. From my information also, it was a lone gunman shooting randomly at people in the city center close to the main synagogue. 4 people have died so far. There are about 15 in the hospital at the moment. The gunman seemed to have acted alone. He was killed on the spot. He is someone who had already previously been convicted and detained also for trying to join Islamic State. He was therefore known to the authorities. ISIS has already also claimed responsibility for the attack, and we now have investigations that are ongoing to find out a little bit more about the background and what else we want to know about this terrible incident. Otherwise, yes, we are concerned, of course, about the Viennese and also of our Jewish communities and the institutions. I spoke yesterday also with people back home in Vienna, and they tell me that we're also cooperating very closely with our international partners and also with the local Jewish community in Vienna to make sure everyone is safe and also feels safe. And we are extremely grateful for the kind words of our friends around the world, and very grateful also that you reached out and contacted both President and our Chancellor. That makes us, in these difficult times, it's good to know that we have real good friends.
It was also very moving to hear from my friend Karl Schönborn, the Archbishop of Vienna, about the service that was held with the participation of the entire Austrian government and the President and Chancellor and leaders of the various religious communities expressing solidarity and not being intimidated by this heinous attack. I'm an optimist by nature. So I believe freedom repels tyranny, and united against hate repels and defeats terrorism. And that's my prayer, not only in Vienna, in Nice, and I was glad to see that both President Macron and Chancellor Kurz met. So let's talk about, for a moment, about the Kristallnacht observance. You know, 82 years ago, as an 8-year-old child, I saw my synagogue burn on November 9 and 10. And for the first time, I heard about Dachau and Buchenwald, and 30,000 men were taken to these concentration camps. Thank God today, Austria is a democratic country, very important supporter of Israel. And also, particularly, I want to say thank you to Chancellor Kurz for when you chaired the European Union. You were actually, I was there and spoke at a conference against anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. What is your assessment about the anti-Semitic rise throughout Europe, and what security are you providing to the small Jewish community in Austria?
Yes, well, quite a difficult time. And I just maybe also want to say that on a day like this, the Reichskristallnacht, something that of course we all commemorate also in Austria, and we try to do this even in times of COVID, when, as you know, there is a lockdown in Vienna. Unfortunately, on the eve of the 2nd of November, we had to go into lockdown again. So much of what we are able to do nowadays is virtual, and here also with you, of course. It would have been much nicer to be physically and in person, but of course that has some impact. But nevertheless, that very much is part of the remembrance, and that will happen virtually, of course, in these cases. I think you pointed at something which is a worrying trend. We've seen absolute rise in hate crime, on anti-Semitic incidents that have happened in Austria and also in other European countries. There was quite an interesting study by the EU Fundamental Rights Agency in last year among the EU 27, also in the UK, where they found rising levels of anti-Semitism in all of Europe. And we know, of course, we have also seen that in Austria. We've also done our own study together with the Forum Against Anti-Semitism and the Jewish Community Vienna, that we also just very recently, that was very recently published, which says that we've had also more incidents, unfortunately, in Austria, most of these on the internet. So there seems to be a real, the social media has opened, if you wish, a new Pandora's box, a new, as yet unregulated area, and also a bit uncharted area, where it is possible, or where people feel that they can say things, and it is a reflection, of course, possibly of what people feel. This is something that we believe needs much more study, and which needs a lot more examination. What we've done on the EU level, perhaps, during our presidents, you mentioned it very clearly, that was in December 2018, during our presidency, the European Council unanimously adopted this declaration on the fight against anti-Semitism.
Some of the European members were not happy about the initiative.
That is true, but it's been there, and it is not only a declaration, and that was for us so important, and that's why we really worked so hard on about it, because it was not only a declaration, because these words, it's easy to come up with a piece of paper and maybe a declaration, but what was started was a process. A European process with a working group that works on securing the premises of the Jewish communities, education on Holocaust, Jewish life, Shoah remembrance, data collection on incidents that happens. And there's this working group that continuously works that, and every member state undertook to adopt and to develop a national strategy on anti-Semitism by the end of this year. And we ourselves are really very hard working. We're in the final stages of putting the strategy together. I mean, if you ask what is Austria doing to protect our Jewish community, you've been there many times. You know also from the Austrian Jewish community that, I mean, the current government takes its responsibilities here very, very seriously. And I think also in the Austrian government program, we have rarely seen such a very strong commitment to the Jewish community and to protecting Jewish life. So it will probably be much easier for me to explain all the various elements of this once we have our national strategy. It will be hopefully out very soon, but it will see security, justice, education, social cooperation on the various levels. We will try to make sure that the community is protected and that the remembrance is fully assured.
You served with distinction as deputy permanent representative. Coming back now to the UN, in what way has the UN changed?
Well, for me at the moment, I think the main change that I see is, of course, COVID. It's something I have not I have been at the UN a couple of times, but while I have it in my memory, you know, you spend all day basically in various meetings and in side meetings and in bilateral consultations at the side of the room or in the Vienna cafe at the UN. All of this is not possible at the moment. So for me, the immediate biggest impact is just simply, this is not the UN as I remember it, as I know it. But I can say from if you take out that whole COVID-related difference that we have, I think there is now maybe a stronger pushback on many of the values that we may consider as Western values. China has become very strong in the United Nations. This is also due to some extent because the US has drawn back, has sort of withdrawn from some of the UN bodies, and therefore is not as physically present in the meetings. And as the EU, we do note that the opposition to some of the values that we have been working on and trying to implement and trying to also spread during the past 70 years, 75 years at the UN, that is becoming very difficult. And there are more contentious meetings now. There are more rights of reply. The mood is a bit more combative. We saw that already in some of the speeches that we heard during the high-level week, which were all on record through recorded video messages. But in essence, I think what we have experienced, and this may be one of the difficulties that we face, is that the UN is now 75 years old, and the organization now, of course, is still in its structures that were conceived 75 years ago, and the world out there is very different, and many of the tools and instruments might be a bit jarring with reality simply. And I think that, of course, sometimes can be dealt with if everyone wants it to work. But if you have some members who are less interested in having the UN succeed, then the UN has a lot of trouble to succeed. And that's, I think, where we are at the moment.
I want to salute you. On the latest General Assembly vote, Austria abstained when it came to a criticism of Israel. Is this a new direction of Austrian policy?
There has been a shift in Austrian policies to some extent. We always coordinate with our EU partners, and we try to find an EU line. This is sometimes not possible, and in those areas where there's no EU unity, we have moved and we are also pursuing this new policy now also with the conviction that it is the right thing to do. But it is always, I can tell you, it is always an issue where we have to try to also see exactly how we really end up helping Israel, because a vote is something which is very easily cast. It's not hard to cast a vote in any sort of direction. But you have to also see how it fits into the bigger picture. There are, several resolutions, and there are very many sensitivities. And I think our Israeli friends know this, and I think they also acknowledge that Austria is really one of the friends that they can really rely on in trying to make sure that Israel is not singled out and treated unfairly. We have, I think, also, I met just recently for lunch with my Israeli colleague Gilad Erdan, who's a great guy, and he also confirmed this. You would have to ask him, frankly. He would have to tell you. I don't want to speak for him, but I think he knows, and I think our friends know where we are on these issues.
Yes, Parky Synagogue welcomed Ambassador Erdogan, and actually it was at the height of the pandemic, but he came to services on Rosh Hashanah, the first day, and I blessed him. And it was, again, you mentioned January 27th. I invite you now, our annual Shabbat UN International Holocaust Remembrance Service, where the Secretary General and Guterres, Secretary General, never missed any of the Sabbath services before January 27th, with members of the diplomatic corps remembering the Holocaust. And I posed a question to him at the time, when the Holocaust survivors will no longer be here, including myself, who will tell the story? And he responded in a very, very genuine way. We will tell the story. And you mentioned the Holocaust outreach program by the UN. And then I think Austria is actually trying to provide citizenship to descendants of Austrians who had to leave during the Nazi era. Can you elaborate on that one?
Gladly, even though I have to say that as the UN ambassador, I will not be able to answer any technical questions on this, because it's actually quite a complicated legal issue as well. But it is, nevertheless, I do know that, yes, we are very proud of this amendment to the Austrian citizenship law, which was just passed in October last year, and which entered into effect 1st of September this year. It's the new paragraph 58C of the Austrian citizenship law, and it gives the possibility that victims of the Nazi regime and their descendants can now acquire Austrian citizenship. There are a couple of conditions involved. Of course, there has to be some connection to Austria, which is clear. But I think all of the sort of the administration and all that, I would ask, please contact Helmut Böck. He is our consul general. You know him very well, of course, our consul general here in New York. So he knows all the details about this law. But what it enables is that the victims and their descendants can get very quickly Austrian citizenship without losing their own citizenship. And we have already it's been now possible for a little over a month, we already have more than 10,000 applications worldwide. So it is something that we are extremely happy that it is really being used. And we are looking forward to welcoming all these new Austrian citizens as our sisters and brothers.
I don't know whether you were in Vienna 2 years ago when Chancellor Kurz invited former Holocaust survivors for the first time coming back to Vienna when I addressed the parliament, and it was a very, very moving scene. Were you in Vienna at the time?
I was theoretically on post in Vienna, but I remember I was out of the country traveling, unfortunately, because otherwise I would have been there somewhere listening in the distance. But I remember the event. It was a big occasion. And I think it fits very strongly into all our efforts to make sure that because you mentioned that Holocaust survivors, we have relied very much on their personal memories and the way that they addressed their personal recollection of the times, and that this has been one of the strongest and also most moving testimony policies that have really been used also in schools, especially the young people. And we have this specific, our Ministry of Education has this Erinnern AT. It's an internationally and nationally active institution that focuses on telling the history of Nazism and also of the Holocaust and preventing anti-Semitism. And so this institution situated at the Austrian Federal Ministry for Education also has worked in the past with the Holocaust survivors and is also ensuring that their testimony will also be there in the future, especially for the case of education in schools.
This is a very important program. In fact, in my address at the Parliament, I mentioned the importance of educating children to love and not to hate. My own experience, I became a pariah after the Anschluss. My Christian friends severed all contact with me. We could not go to the soccer field together. We could not go to the park. Students of the same class, we were segregated, separate schools, and no sports events. And again, they did that on the instruction of their parents. So education, children are born with love, but they can be taught how to love. They can also be taught how to hate. I think that program is a very significant one. And I'm wondering, when I came back to Vienna after the Holocaust, surviving in Budapest, thanks to Karl Lutz, a Swiss consul general, a diplomat, a hero diplomat, who saved lives, like the nuncio Wallenberg, Swedish, and also Spanish and Portuguese. When I enrolled again in the gymnasium am Sturmbastei, I must tell you, I was the only Jewish student among 800 in 1945. And I'm sorry, 1946. Holocaust discussion was not mentioned at all. None. Verboten. Did you go to Realgymnasium 1 or you went to another school?
I went to another school. I went to the Bundesgymnasium 13 in the 13th district, Fichtnergasse, yes.
When did you first learn about the Holocaust in the school?
I was lucky enough that when I went to school, the teachers were encouraged to teach the time after 1930 in the final, which in Austrian systems the 8th grade. I think it would be 12th grade, the last class in high school. But it did not tell you exactly which years to focus on. So you had the possibility to teach about the 30s and until 45. You could theoretically also focus on the history of Austria after 55, and thereby completely avoid mentioning that time. I had a teacher who went into great detail, and I also participated in a Freifach, in a non-man, in what is it called, a subject I could choose, which was called politische Bildung, which went into great details about the times of the 20s and the 30s. But we did go into that. But many of my friends who went to other schools actually did not learn about it. All that has changed now. I mean, that has really changed. The curriculum now makes absolutely sure that younger students, under 14, and then also the older students, all learn about this time and about the Holocaust. And there also, this Erinnern.at, of course, supports also teachers, training the teachers, excursions to concentration camps, discussions with survivors, cooperation also with Yad Vashem, for example, but also other international institutions, UNESCO, various institutions to really make sure that this is something that is absolutely part of every school curriculum in Austria.
You know, Holocaust denial, regrettably, very, very painful, and still exists and spread, including by some countries like Iran. Ahmadinejad in the UN, Holocaust denial, the former Prime Minister of Myanmar, and so forth. How serious a challenge is that to be overcome?
Well, it's an extremely serious challenge, and it's something that we are, of course, also worried, because as time moves on, and if there's a proliferation of denial, we see now that people in this new world of internet and of social media, everyone has an individual reality that they live in, that they build together from their news feeds. From my children, I have 3 children, everyone has their own news sources, everyone has a separate music list and a film that they want to watch. It's becoming very difficult to watch a family movie on the weekend, because everyone has their own choice, and making compromises become very difficult. So in this world, and in this world where everyone lives in your own little reality, if you buy into some news feeds that have anti-Semitic content, or deny the Holocaust, content that denies Holocaust, you will be very strongly influenced, and you will never hear an opposing view. In the UN itself, it is always possible to counter such denial. But if you only live in your online bubble, you might never actually be exposed to that. And so this is one of the big issues that I think we will have to confront within the future, in making sure that the truth and history as it happened is something that every citizen is confronted with in some way. And that we identify those who deny, and we address that, and we somehow also get people to be confronted with opposing, with different views. I mean, of course, in a free society, everyone can believe what they want to believe, everyone can think what they want to think. But I think it is absolutely crucial that the state does whatever it can to make sure that information gets to its citizens. And again, we are back in education. I think it's crucial, of course, that young people grow up learning what history really was. And I think that is the best foundation for them to be able to then build their worldview on the values that I think also your foundation also and you yourself continue to pursue.
You know, Holocaust denial is really a mission in confronting what can happen to other people in a similar way. Look, Roma also suffered. Or when I addressed 700 relatives in Srebrenica in the year, this is the heart of Europe, 8,000 men and their sons, with the UN peacekeepers, Dutch peacekeepers around, murdered. So it's not only a remembrance as far as Jewish suffering, but it's also something, a warning. It can happen to any other people. And I think that I've used Vienna as a place for reconciliation. During the Yugoslav Civil War, bringing together the religious leaders of both Catholic Patriarch Pavla and the Kosovo situation. So I think Austria has a very important role, particularly because of geographic location, to be a bridge builder in terms of stability and peace, not only for Europe, but for all of humanity. How do you see Austria's role?
Well, thank you very much. It's something that we very much hope to be, and I think it has been ever since the end of the Second World War, a role that Austrian foreign policy has actively sought. We of course, during the Cold War, we were almost a natural bridge builder because we were a neutral country in the middle of between those two big blocks confronting each other. But even after 1989, we have tried always to be helpful, either through mediation or through acting with good offices for others to meet in Austria. And we are very grateful to you that you brought religious leaders there, which is a very important component. We have always said that it is one thing for politicians to meet, but it is the society itself. If you want this to have a lasting impact, you need the objectives of politicians and their commitments that they might undergo at a political meeting. You need that to have support in the population, because otherwise it will become a treaty that does not get implemented. So therefore, getting civil society, getting religious communities involved in peace process is extremely important. And Vienna has tried to do this through a variety of many issues. We are very happy that the UN also has offices in Vienna. We are happy that the OSCE has its office in Vienna. All of these institutions are political institutions which bring together people from very different nations that have serious conflicts with one another, and use Vienna as a place to talk, to speak. And I think that what you said about it's not, this remembrance and the fact that we look back at the difficult time, the terrible crimes that were committed is so important, is that we must use this to avoid new crimes. And I think if you mentioned that in the cathedral, in the Stephansdom, all the religious communities got together. If you read Chancellor Kurz's speech that he made, it's also available on English. He specifically also called Austrians that this terror act that just happened should not divide the society, that we must stay together, that all the religions have a place, and that even if the perpetrator might have come from the Islamic State, this should not in any way be used as an excuse to now go after the Muslim community in Vienna. And I think also the Muslim community has tried in Vienna very much to demonstrate that it is fully behind the government efforts and the other citizens' efforts to make sure that this does not happen again, and will work also on the education programs and will assist us also in making sure that something like this hopefully will not happen again.
Yes, you'll find that the trend now is finger pointing and blaming. We have to recognize, it's my own experience during the Shoah. There is the beast in man, and I met the beast in man. Mengele and Eichmann, beast in man. And there's so many others. But then there are other hero diplomats, whether it's the Japanese, whether it's the Portuguese. They were determined, even when they sacrificed their own diplomatic career, to save life. So I think that unfortunately we live at a time when there is generalization. And I must say I was very moved that two Turkish, Austrian young men risking their lives in Vienna during this terrorist attack. Can you elaborate on that one, saving the old woman?
Yes, exactly. This was during the attack, while the attacker was still shooting, that two Turkish citizens went and saved, first of all, pulled, from what my understanding is, I've also just know this from the news report. So this comes with a caveat that I of course don't know the exact facts. From what I read, that they assisted a policeman that had been shot and carried him out of the line of fire, and also helped other citizens escaping from or getting out of the immediate zone where the terrorist was still shooting. So you have two heroes in this terrible attack, and of course the fact that they are also Muslim, like the attacker. And I said, we must also remember one of the victims, a young man, a 20-year-old man that was shot by this assailant, this terrorist who came from, as we know, who's an Austrian, who was born in Austria, who went to school in Austria, but who has roots in the Albanian northern Macedonia. But one of the victims that was shot was also a 20-year-old a young Albanian Macedonian. So we can see that there is evil, as you said, and there is good. And I think for me always it has been that if we can do in every situation that we are confronted with, if we have choices to make every day, if we can try ourselves to at least try to do good, that then maybe we can all together contribute. It's so much easier to point out what others should be doing. I think that for me, it's always been, if I just focus on what I could be doing, then that would be already something. At least I would do my piece to try to make the whole world better. Which sounds
question.
Easy, I'm aware.
Have you seen, because of the diplomatic relation or normalization between Israel and Bahrain, the UAE, and also Sudan, any shift in terms of mood at the UN on a new Middle East development?
This is what we all hope for, and I think we have, and Minister Schallenberg has made this also very clear. We have really welcomed this development. Also, Chancellor Kurz, these new agreements that have been concluded between Israel and the states that you mentioned. This is a real positive development, and we hope that this will trickle down. I think. It is, I think, still a bit too early to see the impact at the UN. I think at the moment what we might be seeing is that you will not, for example, see presumably a lot of impact in the votes as they're going. We just had the voting yesterday in the fourth committee on some of the Palestinian package resolutions. Don't look for that. I think we will not find that there. This is much too recent. I think the impact we will see will be there, and it will depend on these Arab states working within the Arab group, because the Arab group also has, just like we are the EU group, the European group. If the Arab group changes some of its policies there, I think it's something that we will see quite strongly. But this takes time. But the fact that this happened this year is, of course, very important, and this may have lasting impact. We have to, of course, now see also what the reaction is on the Israeli side, and what does this mean. In many of these Arab states now also have the hope that this has put annexation off the table, and I think everyone is now looking at what the other side is doing. So we are at one of these situations that you know well in international diplomacy. I think if everyone now keeps the long-term goal, which is best relations, peace in the Middle East, if we sort of keep this goal in mind, I think that's something that could have been a very important start.
Having served as U.S. alternate representative to United Nations in 1988, this was still Gorbachev, Reagan, okay? I'm a firm believer that every conflict comes to an end. I remember when Austria was divided, Vienna was divided by the four, okay? You had to go from one zone to the other zone, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Today, Vienna is one city, right? And when you will join us for the International Holocaust Remembrance Shabbat at Parky Synagogue, when I sit on the pulpit with the Secretary General and I see in the first row the Israeli permanent representative, Russia, Germany, Japan, China, when you think, going back in history, some of these nations were enemies. So I salute you for devoting your life's work to be a peace builder. And that has been your really commitment to your country and also to humanity. Delighted to have you with us. And I hope that we will see healing, not only healing of the pandemic, but also healing in terms of a divided humanity and a divided world, which unfortunately is reflected in the United Nations too.
Yes.
A divided world with self-interest. So we pray that we will learn from history in united, we prevail, divided, we fail. And as I always say, we are in the same boat. We either swim together or sink together. But you're a swimmer.
I hope so. Yes, yes. And with the help of everyone else, we can swim together.
So I wish you a very successful term in the United Nations. And I also think that grateful for the security and safety of Austrian society. And that means across the board. And that is, we will stand against those who want to disrupt and destroy peaceful coexistence, be it in Austria, be it here in the United States, or anywhere else. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You have the last word.
No, nothing to add to that, dear Rabbi Schneier. Just to say, you will always have Austria as your closest partner on all these issues.
Well, I left Vienna, but my birthplace is still Vienna. Vienna is still in my heart.
And I hope you will still come and visit often.
I do. In fact, you know, my father, fortunately, died before the Kristallnacht. So he was buried in Central Friedhof, and I visit every year. Unfortunately, my grandfather, who was deported from Vienna to Theresienstadt, and then met his death in Lublin, only a memorial. And that's why I was so moved to participate when the Chancellor, Kurz, whom I admire greatly, we dedicated a monument to the Holocaust in the heart of the city of Vienna, so that people will remember.
Yes, there's the wall of victims with 64,000 names that will be erected. And that these works are continuing even now during the lockdowns that we've had this year.
So now those who were privileged only to live in freedom, who are listening to our conversation, also get a picture of the change that has occurred. What Vienna under the Nazi regime and a democratic, free Austria, member of the European Union, and a government that seeks to protect and save. Thank God we live to see it. I say, thank God I live to see it. So, from darkness to light.
Beautiful.
God bless you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Schneier. All the best to you, and thank you for all your wonderful work that you are doing, really.
I'm Leo Eigen, and my poem is titled Never Again. Synagogues, businesses, schools burning, Torah scrolls ablaze for peace yearning. We mustn't ever forget what happened then. Never again, never again. On the night of broken glass, chaos, terror, and bedlam amass. We mustn't ever forget what happened then. Never again, never again. hopes, dreams, and aspirations destroyed, lives changed and left in void. We mustn't ever forget what happened then. Never again, never again. We mustn't ever forget what happened then. Never again, never again.
My name is Rosa Marks, and my poem is called The Night of Broken Glass. Shattered shards and shrieks of fear, wishing just to disappear. Flames, fighting, and families apart, a night of brutally broken hearts. From Torah to trinket, all turned to ash, the sound of glass breaking, an echoing crash. All was stolen on that night, our gold and silver and brass. They call that night Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass.
My name is Danny Kristallnacht, and my poem is titled Empathy. Kristallnacht, night of the broken glass. Kristallnacht, the death of the Jewish class. Stores, synagogues, everything is burning, but the Nazis are sleeping in the morning. All the plunder from the past evening that they are storing. Kristallnacht, where no one would come and save the Jews, no one was brave. Screaming and crying to the Jews that day. They would have killed us, the Germans say. They could have found another way. Kristallnacht, the Nazis carried out their evil plan, while all the Jews could not even take a stand. Many tried to escape, others stayed to their demise, as the Nazis took the opportunity to rise. Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass. Terror, dismay, and anxiety amass. The world should learn what we need more than ever is that we should be people with heart and empathy.
began.